My name is Alex. I'm a programmer. More specifically, a front-end web developer. I started my web development career with no college degree, no clients, and just studying at home by myself. Because of this, I went through a lot of trial and error in order to figure out what I truly enjoyed doing, and what exactly I was good at. Most times I had an idea for a project, I had to rely only on my skills or develop new ones. Today I'll be sharing how I build a web app from the ground up. From inspiration to idea, from mock-up to development. Let's get started. Every once in a while when I'm feeling more in tune, I get a bunch of ideas for apps or websites. To be honest, most of those ideas are either incomplete, impractical, way too complex, or straight out bad. Regardless of how promising they might be, I try recording most of them somewhere I can take a second look later on. Kinda like a bucket of ideas or a suggestion box, and I just let them sit there for a while. This could be a Trello board, a physical notebook, or my personal favorite, a Notion document. If the idea sticks with me for a bit, I take note of everything that comes to mind that could be part of it. The concept, the features, the problems it would solve. Then I put it down and go about my day. A few years ago I read that someone would place their ideas into different columns, representing their likeliness to succeed. All ideas would start in a generic column, let's say it's called the backlog column, advance to promising if it started to sound good, and move on to in progress if it was worth the shot. Finally, after its execution, the idea would end up either in the success or the failure column. This is because any idea can be useful, even if it alone provides little value. The idea of today can be transformed into a simpler feature or better idea of tomorrow. A complete failed project can provide valuable insights for future good ideas, such as, why did this idea fail? Keeping an archive of every explored idea can serve both as an inspiration, proof of concept, or simply a reminder of what not to do. If after a couple of days I notice my brain is still thinking about the same idea and about how it could be improved, I move it to the promising column, and I start looking into similar products out there to try understanding whether or not this could be a viable solution. If I do find other projects, aka competition, I try figuring out how mine would differ, or even improve on the concept. Remember, competition often means there is a validated market for your idea. What I do next is writing down a pitch. Like I'm going on Shark Tank to sell an idea. I write down who the idea is for, which is my target demographic, why it makes a difference, which is why the users would want to use this app, and how it would work, the features and the logic it would have. I don't usually go on Shark Tank with this pitch, but this will come in handy whenever I want to present others with my concept, or even for myself if I end up losing focus or sense of purpose down the line. Which happens occasionally. I often tell a couple of friends about my ideas and they give me advice on how to improve it, how to implement it, or simply tell me about other similar products they've come across. Word of advice, sometimes your friends can make or break your motivation with their feedback. But keep in mind that they're just one person with one opinion, so their support or disapproval doesn't mean your idea will either be a failure or a success. Once I'm excited enough to move the idea into the promising column, I move on to the next step. Designing. I use Sketch as my design tool of choice, but I don't usually know exactly what I'm going to do when I open a blank canvas. Like I said before, I'm a developer by trade, not a designer. But sometimes in order to make ends meet, you gotta step outside your comfort zone and do whatever's necessary. My go-to inspiration source for all things app design related is Dribbble.com. I search up for projects within the same category as my idea, say cooking app, interior design app, music app, and try to imagine a base layout that would fit my hypothetical app. Will it have a main navigation at the top of the homepage? Will it have a hero banner with some illustration on it? How much text versus white space is it going to display? Do I want to start with a homepage or with the app itself? As I browse for ideas, I get a physical notepad so I can start wireframing the base layout. I'm using an infinite book, which allows me to erase marker ink and reuse the pages. It's also pretty good to just erase mistakes as I draw. Next up, we do a bit of project management. Now that I have a vague idea where some things will be placed on the screen, I write down all the features I want to be done. I try to be as specific as I possibly can. What the feature consists of, all its nuances, possible changes, and sometimes even implementation details. In each feature card, I add screenshots to serve as a reference, add labels with some categories such as front-end, back-end, or design. All of this will guide me in the future when I need to imagine how it will look like, and it will also help me keep track of the work yet to be done or prioritized. Now that I have some visual idea what to build, it's time to put this into pixels and give it some color and shape. I start by creating a 1440 pixel wide artboard. This is where my desktop version of the page will be laid out. Now we have to figure out how our UI is going to look like. To come up with a base style I like, I browse Dribbble for more specific UI elements, like app navigation, web app button, color scheme, UI kit, web section, app form. I save a bunch of ideas I like, and once I have a decent amount, it's time to cherry pick the details I enjoy from different ideas to come up with my own. I used to not know how much was enough when it comes to inspiration, and ended up saving too many ideas, which will lead me to feel overwhelmed when the time came to choose. So now I try sticking with between 3 or 5 examples per UI element before moving on. After choosing a color theme and the base UI style, I try finding the most appropriate font for the project. This can sound simple, but can be just as overwhelming as choosing the rest of the app elements. The fonts you choose will be part of the app's character, and what kind of personality I want to convey. Do I want it classic or formal? Maybe a more classic serif font will do. Will it feature big titles in front of graphics? Maybe use a strong, flashy font for titles, and a more readable one for bigger chunks of text. Honestly, I almost never feel inspired for this task, so I ended up looking up something like Best Free Fonts of 2021, or just browse some Google Fonts if I want to keep things easy. Now that I have a first page that will serve as a foundation for our UI, I usually change gears and switch to what I enjoy the most: programming. I'm a visual thinker. I like having visual clues and indications of what I'm about to work on. That's why I design my own mockups instead of jumping headfirst into the development side of the work. However, my biggest passion is the code implementation part. Because of that, instead of doing the whole design process up front, I jump between designing and programming as I work on my projects. Once I'm done designing a page, I program it. Sometimes I try different things while I'm at it, like adding some animations, doing the mobile and tablet adjustments on the spot. This helps me avoid getting bored in any phase of the project, or even worse, getting burned out. If I'm building something with relatively complex logic, I use React. And to set up my projects, I use Create React App so I can focus on the product instead of worrying about tools and the initial project boilerplate. This way, everything is automatically set up for me and I can get started right away. I start with the app component, as it's usually the main container for the React app, and from there I follow the mockup specs page by page, section by section. After some time programming, I eventually run out of finished mockups and I have to jump back to designing new pages, and the cycle repeats itself until I have a finished product. If I have to do something extra like doing my own back-end programming, I simply include it in the process as another step in the cycle. I start a lot of side projects, and truth is, I don't finish nearly as much as the ones I start. Finishing projects is great, not only because it makes you feel closure and sense of accomplishment for getting it done, but also in the end you have something to show off in your portfolio. And who knows, you might even be able to monetize it if you want. In spite of that, I always encourage people to start new projects, not just because of the end result, but because of all the experience the process will bring you. You'll be forced to learn new things you've never used before in order to get everything done. You'll have to practice self-discipline and critical thinking to make sure the project doesn't go off rails, or to avoid procrastinating. You have to make judgment calls regarding what can be done, what might be too ambitious, and what simply just won't work. And last but not least, this is how you practice. Hopefully this will get you motivated to expand your limits to what you think you can do, and try new things outside your comfort zone in order to turn your ideas into reality. Have fun! See you in the next video.